Welcome to Your Success Podcast. We give you actionable insight and stories behind real-life success wherever you go. Here are your hosts, Angelos and Mo.
Welcome to Your Success Podcast. I'm Angelos.
And I'm Mo. Now, as you know, this podcast is all about success, and today we're extremely fortunate to have time with an Amazon best-selling author with his book, Big Ideas for Small Businesses, a multiple business owner, host of the Big Idea podcast and champion for small business, who very kindly invited Angelos and myself to his box at Plymouth Argyle. Come on, you pilgrims, I think is what we were chanting. John Lamerton, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you, Angelos. Good to be here.
And just very quickly, John, going and seeing a live football match was on my bucket list, so you helped tick that one off. Otherwise,
and you've been twice now.
Yeah.
Unbeaten in two as well, aren't they?
Yeah. Good luck.
Good omen.
It must be,
yeah. Indeed. So, John, you've accomplished a lot in your life. I think that's fair to say. But can you take us back to the beginning and where this entrepreneurial flair came from?
Yeah. So I think, I'll take you back actually to school. So I was 15 years old, and the careers teacher came in and said, right, it's time to choose what you're going to do with your life. So I decided, okay, let's do this. They give you this aptitude test. You fill out 100 questions on a scale of 1 to 5. How do you feel about the following statements? They feed that into a computer. That then tells you what you're going to do with your life. And they told me that I was either going to be a judge or I was going to work in marketing. And I said, I really fancy marketing. I can't see me as a judge, the robes and the wig, judgmental, yes, but actual, dealing with people's lives like that, no, couldn't do that. So I said, look, I fancy doing marketing. Really, really keen on this. What do I need to do? And my careers teacher said to me, yeah, we don't do that in Plymouth. You'll have to move to London if you want to do marketing. So that dream was buried. I thought forever, but it transpires not.
So how long ago was that, John?
That would have been 1994. So, 24 years ago.
So 24 years ago, marketing only happened in London?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. Or certainly as far as the careers teacher was concerned, because, again, they were teaching you or they were leading you towards the job you were going to do. And that was the key word, job.
Yeah.
People didn't start their own businesses unless they were completely unskilled and they went off and they became a gardener or a handyman or something like that. Or a mechanic. You didn't start your own business. Entrepreneurs was a dirty word, I think, back in the early 90s. I ended up giving up on that dream and joining the civil service.
Woohoo!
Complete opposite of entrepreneurial flair. Spent 7 years in the civil service and absolutely hated it by the end of my time there. I'd done 4 or 5 different roles, different jobs within different departments within the civil service. One in particular I loved. The rest of them I'd say give or take, but no, I hated it. I hated all of them. And by the end of my time there, I really, truly hated it with a passion. So much so that I started my first business during my 3-week training course in my last role. I'm going to hate this. So I'm starting my own business. And secondly, I also started smoking again. Now, I'd given up 9 months before, gone 9 months without a single cigarette, and then suddenly started this new job and thought, this is a bit stressful. I'm hating this. And do you know what? If I smoked, I'd get a 5-minute cigarette break in the morning and a 5-minute cigarette break in the afternoon. That's 10 minutes a day. That's 50 minutes a week. That's a couple of hours a month. I haven't got to be sat at this desk. And all I've got to do is have some cancer sticks.
Yeah. Kill yourself for the sake of time.
So that's exactly what I did. That was my reasoning, my mentality then. But I think it was that determination to leave that day job that really brought the entrepreneurial flair out in me, that it was the desire to leave the day job, to do something that I didn't know how to do. Let's be clear, I knew nothing about running businesses. When I first started, my very first business was an internet marketing business. 3 problems with that. Number 1, I knew nothing about marketing, other than they only do it in London. Number 2, I knew nothing about the internet. And number 3, I didn't own a computer. So small problems, but I was able to overcome them purely because of that very, very strong desire to leave the day job. If I didn't hate the day job quite so much, I wouldn't have been asked to work 5 hours a day on top of the day job,
Yeah. It said that it will either be the pain or the extreme pleasure that will force you to make change in your life. And in your case, it was that.
Oh, absolutely. It was getting away from that pain of the civil service.
And do you think there's still colleagues that you worked with working there now?
Yes, absolutely. I met up with them. No, not in that last job, but certainly people that I worked with. I mentioned there was one role I particularly enjoyed. I actually met up with those colleagues a couple of weeks ago. Very interesting to see how their lives have turned out over the last 20 odd years. Their mindset is completely different to mine now. At the time we were working together, I looked up to them because they were senior to me. I was kind of 20, 21. These guys were sort of mid-30s, early 40s. I really looked up to them. They were senior staff. And to listen to them now, it's quite saddening to hear them talking about that. There's a lot of fear. They're scared. They don't like their job still. This is a job now that many of them have been doing for 40 odd years, but they hate their job and they're scared of losing their job at the same time. And it's amazing to see that mentality. I met up with one a few years ago, and he said this one line. It stuck with me on that night out, and he said, as long as I can get my mortgage covered, and as long as I get my salary, I think he said he was on 18 grand a year. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh my God, you're only on 18 grand a year. You were like, when I joined the department, you were 10 years, you had 10 years more service than me. So I would expect another couple of decades have gone by, I'd expect you to be on 40, 50 grand. You're telling me you're on 18 grand. I've just hired a kid who I'm paying more than that. He's 22 years old and I'm paying him 24 grand. It's like, geez. And it's just that sliding doors moment of, that could have been my life.
That was a mirror image of what would it could be.
Yeah, if I'd stayed in the civil service, here we are now, 20 years later, or 18 years later, I would possibly have had a promotion, maybe two. I'd have 25 years service. I wouldn't be living in this house. I'd be living in a much smaller house. So I wouldn't have any of the trappings of it.
Just very quickly, John, I don't want to dwell on this point, but how do you think they viewed you?
I think there's a disconnect there in that they don't quite know what to make of me now. You're going to love this, Angelos. So the last time we met up was 2 weeks ago, and the conversation went out for a tie, and there was about 6 of us around the table, and the talk is retirement, redundancy, fear, what they hate about the job right now, and reminiscing how good it used to be back in the day. And then eventually someone would ask me a question, so what do you do now? And I'd explain that, yes, I've written a book, I've got a podcast, I've got several businesses, doing really well. And then I kind of had to say, look, I've got to head off now, guys, because I'm on BBC Radio Devon in the morning. And there was just that real disconnect between I hate my life, I hate my job, but I don't see a way out. And there was one lady, and she's just been made redundant. So she was a little more interested in me. She was like, oh, what could I do? I've only ever worked in civil service. When I left school, I joined the civil service. It's now 35 years later, and I've been kicked out of the civil service with a redundancy package. So I've got no job, but I've got £35,000 redundancy. Her process so far has been, let's go and find another job. Let's try and find another job very similar to what I've been doing and not enjoying, yet worried about losing for the last couple of years. How do I know? So, she said, she was talking about a pasty franchise. Obviously, I'm gathering we've got listeners all over the country.
Some kind of business.
It is.
Something me and Angelos could get on board with.
But that was her attitude. I like pasties. She lives in Poole up in Dorset, so she's worked in Plymouth, so she understands the pasty culture. And she's like, there isn't a pasty shop in Poole. Why is there not a pasty? I'm going to take a pasty franchise in Poole. So she was a little bit more interested. Whereas I think everyone else just thought, oh yeah, there's John. He does this weird internet thing that I don't really understand, and I get that a lot. I've had it from my family. And certainly, no, I have. I mean, I remember conversations with my dad about, I remember saying to him way back in the day, I can't come over today, Dad, because I'm sending my newsletter. Your what? My newsletter. I send an email newsletter out every Thursday with our latest offers in, send out to about 10,000 people. 10,000 people? Jesus, that must cost you a fortune in stamps. I was like, no, Dad, it's not stamps.
Yeah. But it's just that mindset, isn't it? It's just, you can't blame him, we can't judge him. It's just in his world, that is how newsletters operate.
Exactly. If you want to send out something, you put a stamp on it.
Yeah.
I never let him forget it to this day.
That's brilliant. I think the other thing that you pointed out there is that they're very much sort of looking to retirement and to winding down, whereas you're probably still going the other way, whereas you're still looking to expand and grow, and as you get older you just want to do more and more. Yeah. So that's a really interesting disconnect as well.
It is definitely. I'm definitely still in wealth creation mode, whereas I don't think they've ever been in that mode. They've just been in pay the bills, pay the mortgage.
Perseverance mode.
Yeah. It's the typical rat race, the treadmill, the hamster wheel.
They hate it, they despise it, but it's not enough pain for them to leave and make a difference.
And I don't think they see a way out. I think for me, when I was a civil servant and hating it, there were two ways out that I saw. One was the obvious way out, which was to get another job.
Yeah.
And I explored that avenue without success. Didn't even get interviews for some reason. I now know it's why, because I'm unemployable.
And that's a good thing, right?
It is. So the only other option was to start my own business. So, I mean, why did I choose to start an internet marketing business? Well, it was because the press was full of Brent Holdman, Martha Lane Fox, all these entrepreneurs. It was the dot-com boom of the late 90s, early 2000s. All these little kids, 20-year-old kids, were having ideas, and they were getting paid millions of pounds just for having an idea. They didn't need to make any money. They didn't have an actual business model. They just needed an idea and a domain name. So I figured, in my naivety, well, I could do that. I've got ideas. So that's what I did. And I just figured it out.
You're a self-styled lazy entrepreneur.
That's me, yep.
What exactly does that mean, John?
Okay, well, I think that stems from being a civil servant. That's where the lazy aspect comes from. I've never enjoyed working hard for the sake of working hard. Yeah. I'm not afraid of hard work, but I am inherently lazy. The job I loved for the civil service was a nice, easy job. I knew exactly what I was doing with it. It was great fun. It was something different every day. The jobs I hated were you will sit at this desk from 9 in the morning until 5 at night and you will process stuff. So to me, I'm not afraid of hard work in any stretch of the imagination, but I very much work to live, not live to work.
So, John, just for our listeners, can you tell us a bit about your current businesses and how you apply that sort of lazy methodology, or I suppose efficient, you might call it, to those current businesses that you've got? Yeah,
absolutely. So we've got three main businesses at the moment. So we've got a sports betting business, which does like horse racing tips, football analysis, statistical data, that sort of thing. We've got a property investment business, and we've got a small business mentoring business. A couple of joint ventures as well, but on the whole, so there's a lot going on there, and I think the key thing is I do achieve a lot, but I don't do much of it myself. So I see myself as like, I don't play chess, but I see myself as playing chess. I'm just moving the pieces around, looking at the strategy, saying, okay, how's this going to play out? If I do X, what happens? If I can persuade Angelos to do X, what happens? Oh, the same thing, but I don't need to actually do it. So I need to get Angelos on board. What do I need to do to get Angelos on board? But Angelos needs this. Okay, that's where I'm going to go. I'm going to go off down that path. When I do work very hard. So I work very similar to you've heard of HIIT training, I take it?
Yeah.
High intensity interval training. I do exactly the same in my business. So I will be very intensely. So right now, for example, we're recording this 2 weeks before the Cheltenham Festival. So this is the biggest event in horse racing. Once a year it happens. Right now I am working very, very intensely because this is our biggest time of the year for lead generation. Between mid-February and mid-March, we take on something like 16,000 new leads in the sports betting business, and then obviously we've got to try and convert those into sales, upsell them, everything like that. Second week in March, Cheltenham happens, we go all out. Literally, that will be a 100-hour week. Now, 100-hour weeks used to be the norm for me, but I'd spend those 100 hours refreshing stats and checking emails and looking on Facebook.
I was going to say, what do you, as the sort of the CEO or the owner of the business, what do you spend your time doing on that you can fill that much time in an intense period?
Yeah.
If everything's kind of fairly automated, what kind of things are you doing?
It is now. So when I'm in the business, I am defining strategy. I am managing the staff. I do quite a lot of writing copy. Mainly because I enjoy it. If I did it all the time, I wouldn't enjoy it. And that's what I like about the HIT principle is I can go, right, I'm not Rob. We've got an in-house copywriter called Rob. He does all of our copy. On a day-to-day basis, Rob, here's the copy for you. Rob, here's the copy. When I feel like coming in and doing a bit of copy, I write an amazing sales letter. If I had to write sales letters every day, I wouldn't write an amazing sales letter. I would write an okay sales letter. But because I'm doing it because I want to, and I don't do it every day, when I do come in, it's that HIT principle. If I can smash it out of the park for a day, I can smash it out of the park for a week. Ask me to go at that level for a month, and I'm either going to burn out or the work's going to suffer.
So the creativity comes when you can relax, as opposed to, John, you will work between 9 and 5 and you will be creative.
Yeah, pressure's off. The only pressure I apply to myself is myself saying, there's a firm deadline. That bloody book, as it became known, had a firm deadline.
Bloody good book.
Yeah. But without that firm deadline, there wouldn't be that book there today, because I would just go, it'll be published when it's published. But I said, 21st of June last year, I'm publishing that book. I set a date. I booked the yacht club in Plymouth. I invited everyone out. I just created everything so that on the 21st of June, I was going to be stood on a stage in front of 70 or 80 people. I could not stand there and say, well, I planned on having a book, but something happened, and that I've got plenty of excuses for you, but I haven't got a book. That was never going to happen. Cheltenham Festival is happening. I can't change that. It's going to happen. Let's.
Is that Alexa?
That was not Alexa. That was. I think that's Bixby.
That's probably your publisher complaining there.
There we go. That's me.
It was quite funny, just to give everyone a bit of context, because we actually disabled Alexa before we started, and we had another interruption from another bit of technology in the room.
Which I also set to do not disturb.
Oh, right,
Amazing.
I'm obviously just pressing buttons in my pocket.
So on top of everything else you do, you mentioned you also host a great podcast.
Yep.
Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, so it's called the Big Idea Podcast. It's myself and my business partner Jason. So we sit down once a month and we chew the fat more than anything. We started off. Actually, the idea behind the podcast was to write the book.
Right.
So the idea was we'll tackle a different topic every week.
Yeah.
We'll record that, get it transcribed, and that will be copy, paste, first draft of the book. Didn't work like that at all.
Why didn't it work?
Because it was too conversational.
Right.
When I write a book, I want it to be perfect prose. I want it to be the exact wording that I want. I want it to flow correctly. When I have a conversation with Jason, we'll talk over each other, we'll interrupt each other, we'll get lost in our train of thoughts, we'll jump backwards and forwards in the timeline. That doesn't work in the written word. That's how we started off with the podcast. It's now transformed into a monthly podcast whereby, Jason and I, we look at topics that we've come up against.
Yeah. And there's one about writing a book, isn't there?
There is, we've got some there, and sell it as well, because obviously it has become a bestseller, but it doesn't become a bestseller just because you've written it. And I think that's something that so many people forget, certainly with their businesses, is that they forget they need to sell as well. And it's one of the things I think, certainly for a book, it's very easy to go, I've written a book, brilliant, well done me, all the hard work's over. I remember when I finished the manuscript, and I remember thinking to myself, great, that's it, I'm done. And it's like, you're about 50% done. Now comes the real hard slog.
And how long did it take you from concept to publishing that 21st of June date? How long was that period?
So from concept was about 6 or 7 months.
Wow.
So I had the idea just before Christmas 2016. We got a draft version live by June, so we didn't get the finished version live. That was an interesting conversation with my book coach. I went to her, so this would have been about beginning of May, or maybe mid-May, and said to her, I've got my manuscript, here it is, I need some help with proofreading, editing, formatting, getting it up on Amazon. That's it, really. And she said, cool, no, whether that's what I do. She said, I take a manuscript and I turn it into a finished book within 12 weeks. And I said, that's brilliant. I've got 5. She went, oh, okay. So she, quite rightly, refused to let me cut any corners.
Right.
Because I was just like, well, let's cut a corner here.
Yeah.
Let's just, it's good enough. That'll do. No, it's not good enough. And eventually she said to me, look, how many books are you going to write? And I said, well, to be honest with you, I haven't really enjoyed writing this one. I haven't enjoyed the pressure I put upon myself, so this will probably be the last one. So she said, well, if you're never going to write another book, you want this one to be absolutely perfect. You want to put your all into this one. That's why I made sure, my entire life story was in there. Every lesson I've learned in business is in there. I've not held anything back from that book. There is no volume 2. It's all in there. So she said, well, actually, for the sake of, putting out a shit version now, let's put out a really good version 3 weeks later. So we bought ourselves a little bit of time. We got a good enough version, which I was able to stand on stage and say, hey, here you go, everyone, I've written this book. Everyone had a copy. It was, I think I called it the director's cut, which had all the original typos in there, as intended by the author. The formatting was off.
People have actually read it.
Yeah, exactly. But what that actually worked in our favour, because we then had a room full of, say, 80 people who we'd given free beer and free prosecco and free pasties and burgers and a free copy of this book to. And then 3 weeks later, we were able to say to them, okay, the real book is now on sale. It's basically the same one as you've got there now, but it actually reads properly.
Yeah.
I think there's a few interesting things in there about sort of 80-20 and, like you say, it being the 80-20 principle, it being good enough to launch it, but then also having in your mind that there is a better version along the way. But the fact that I think a lot of people dwell and don't actually ever get there because they're constantly pushing it back. So to put the pressure on yourself to at least have an 80% version.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Really, I mean, going back to the sales letter again, the perfectly worded sales letter that never gets sent will always be beaten by the crap version that actually just go, screw it, send. And the amount of times I've done that, obviously I've written a bit of copy and I've spent hours going around and round and round and think, this isn't right, isn't perfect, isn't good enough. And then eventually I've just gone, screw it, send. Oh, we made some sales. All right, I could have made more sales if I'd perfected it. But I also could have wasted a whole another day and still not been any further on.
And also the feedback on what you push out is just as valuable as spending more time to try and get it better.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So if you push something out that's imperfect, you can at least get some sales, get some feedback on maybe where you could tweak it, and then...
I mean, another thing is if you're creating content, you're putting out a lot of content, it doesn't hurt to put out bad content.
Well, Angelos and I are very used to that, so...
But if you put out a bad... so let's say you do a bad episode of the podcast, what's the worst that can happen?
Well, I don't know, because even when people listen to it, they've then listened to it.
Yeah.
So you've still got down, I think.
The world continues to spin, John.
Yeah.
But the thing is, all right, so you put out an episode and hardly anyone listens to it. Doesn't matter, as long as the next episode someone does listen. So as long as you actually just put out new content, all right, your bad content will get buried. It will get forgotten about. I've put out some awful content over the years. I've put out some stuff that is proper cringeworthy.
Yeah.
But that is the stuff that if I look through my Facebook feed, no one's liked on it, no one's commented it, and what have they done? They've just scrolled past and they've moved on. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I put out a bit of content that they do like. Oh my God, that's brilliant. Click, like, comment. And you got that engagement.
And have the consistency.
Yes.
Having because in the beginning I was guilty of it. I wanted the perfect podcast. We're making micro edits, and Mo just said to me, "Look, Just get it out there, man. Otherwise, we'll spend weeks and weeks editing a podcast, and people, they want natural, they want the mistakes, they want warts and all.
Yeah.
Because it makes it more relatable. No one wants a perfected podcast.
Absolutely, and the same with video. That's why we switched to live video, because we were videoing, getting it edited, and then pushing it out later on. But actually, people like to be able to see it live. It does sort of put a bit of pressure on you to get it right first time, but I think that's quite good.
Yes,
absolutely. And it's just nicer. It's more natural content, like your phone will go off and the doorbell will ring and things like that. And
Cat will walk in front of the camera.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's quite nice, I think. So yeah.
John, you mentor a lot of people.
I do, yes.
In your 1% club. What's the biggest thing you come across that holds people back from achieving success?
I think it's a mindset issue, without a doubt. But I also think it is a lack of action. It is that I can't do something, So we've got someone, for example, who, I can't post on Facebook. Don't understand Facebook. So we've gone through and said, okay, just put up some pictures of what you're doing. You've created something here. Take a photo of it. Hit send. Put some words to it. Nothing else, just hit send. And they then spend 2 hours, 3 hours making sure the photo's right. And, what words should I put with it? And, what time of day should I post it? What do you think? And what group should I put it in? It's like, just hit send. Did it work? It's the old thing as, 80-20 analysis again, but did it work? Yes. Great, do it again. Did it work? No. Right, don't do that again. And I think the people who I see succeeding are the people who just try lots of things. And they'll try something and it'll fail. Okay, tried that, didn't work. They'll try something and it works. Cool, I'll do that again. Or it's worked again. Right, how can I scale that up? And that I think is the difference, is how can I actually scale up and make more of that and just do more of what constantly works. But I think, the guys who certainly aren't succeeding aren't taking enough action.
So mindset and taking action.
Yeah, I think the mindset's the hardest thing, because you don't know when you've got a poor mindset. Other than you tell yourself crap stories. I did a post the other day about a story I used to tell myself. I mentioned it in the book. I used to be low on confidence, or at least that was what I told myself. And then one day I was chatting to one of my mentors and he said, well, that's complete BS. He said, you're talking rubbish. I said, what do you mean? He said, you've got all the confidence you need. He said, you've created this business here. You've done this. You've stood up in front of people here. You've travelled halfway across the country to meet with a bunch of strangers. Don't tell me you haven't got any confidence. And just that reframe of, oh yeah, you're right. And then just instantly that line that I have all the confidence I need gave me the confidence that I needed. Because anytime I thought, I can't do that because I'm low on confidence, that was just an excuse to say, ooh, that's a little bit outside of my comfort zone. I don't want to do that. I don't need to because I'm low on confidence.
Yeah.
I've got an excuse. I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too inexperienced, I'm too poor, I'm female, I'm, whatever excuses you're using that, I can't succeed because it's you that's stopping you. And until you actually get out of your own way, those civil servants, they are the ants in the jar. We've all heard the story of the ants in the jar who, they jump up, hit the lid, and then all of a sudden you can remove the lid and they just won't jump any higher because they're conditioned to it. It is that conditioning, the people around you, the people you surround yourself with, what you put into your ears and your eyes and your mouth dictates the life you've got. So, surround yourself with positive people, surround yourself with good personal development, listen to podcasts like this, watch YouTube videos, read books, get yourself educated, get your environment right so that it actually supports you. If the 5 people you hang around with are all losers who hate themselves, guess what? You're going to hate yourself too. I used to hang around with a real bunch of losers. We used to go to the pub pretty much every day, and just, they're still there. They're still in the pub. But I'm no longer there. I've managed to, I'm the one ant that jumped out of the jar. These guys are still in the jar, but they didn't know that they're in the jar. Does that make sense?
That's awesome.
Sad, isn't it?
But that's awesome.
It's really good advice, definitely.
I like the fact that what you see, what you hear, what you put in your mouth dictates. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, John.
John, we've talked a little bit about the book, but what actually inspired you to write the book in the first place?
So I wrote a blog post. I used to blog quite a lot back in the day, and I wrote a 3-part blog post. This would have been back in 2010, I believe, and it was a bit of a mammoth blog. So it was a 3-parter. I released it over 3 weeks, I think. It was my first 10 years in business. And the feedback I had from that was tremendous. Wow. As a blogger, I didn't get a lot of feedback. I didn't get a lot of comments. These 3 posts, I got so much comments because people didn't realise what a roller coaster ride I'd actually been on. They just thought, John's done all right, started off here, ended up here. Wow, massive success. Must be a straight line in between the two. No, not at all. Massive highs, massive lows, made millions of pounds, made thousands of mistakes, nearly lost a lot several times. And I think that inspired me to think, well, you know what? People have really enjoyed this. Perhaps I could write a book one day. And everyone thinks that, and everyone thinks, perhaps one day I'll write a book. And everyone's got that one day book in them. And I think it got to the point with the main sports betting business where Jason and I had designed that business to work without us. So we wanted to make sure that actually, again, being lazy, we weren't needed in the business. We could be on the beach, on the golf course, whatever, and that business would not only work without us, but it would grow, it would thrive without us. And we got to the point in 2016 in the summer where I was on holiday for a fortnight. Jason was on holiday for the following fortnight. We had one day that we were both in the country. We had this little handover period where every year we do this, and I'd come back, because I didn't take the laptop with me, didn't do any work whilst I was away. Literally, it was 2 weeks of just Kindle books and swimming pools and ice cream. And I said to Jason, okay, what's hit the fan over the last 2 weeks? What fires do I need to put out? What's gone wrong? Nothing really. Everything's cool. Everything's great. Oh, okay then. Right, what do you need me to do whilst you're away for the next 2 weeks, and what do I need to look at? Don't know really. You could have a word with Stu if you like. He's working on this project at the moment. He's quite happy. Everyone's there. Systems and processes are all working. Everything's fine. Oh my God, Jason, do you know what? It's happened. It's happened, mate. We've done it. Done what? The business, it works without us. We've just gone basically 4 weeks without either of us really doing anything, and the business carries on. You're like, geez, you're right. So we had this euphoric sort of month and a half where we got, yay, brilliant, we're great, aren't we brilliant? We've achieved our ultimate goal. And then we kind of had this sort of down to reality, almost like, imagine when your kids have left home and they've left school and they've left university, and you think, oh, that's great, they've graduated, they're grown up, they're adults now. Oh, they don't need me anymore. What do I do now? And that was the realisation we had, was what the hell do we do now? And so I spoke to one of my mentors and said, literally that, what the hell do I do now? And he said, well, I know what you're going to do. He said, you're going to end up starting another business, you're going to end up mentoring other businesses. I know you love doing that. He said, but now is the time for you to write this book. He said, because if you don't write it now, you are going to fill that time, and there's never going to be time for the book. He said, so take a few months off, write the book, and then come back and do all the other stuff you want to do. So I said, all right, that's a good point. So I started writing the book, at the Christmas. So I did give myself a few months off just to celebrate, really. Hey, we've achieved this massive goal, which we always thought was unachievable. Do you remember Only Fools and Horses?
Yeah.
So what happened when Derek and Rodney sold that fob watch and they finally became millionaires? They had this real disconnect, this pain of, well, it was all about the chase for us. It was all about the journey to becoming a millionaire. And there's this very sort of poignant scene where I think he's in the flat in Peckham, and the flat's now completely empty, and the phone rings, and there's someone offering him a pallet load of like VHS recorders. Like, oh, but we can make loads of money on this. Like, no, we're not in the business anymore. We're millionaires now. Oh, yeah, no, sorry, mate. We're not in the business anymore. And it's a very poignant scene that made you realise actually it wasn't about becoming a millionaire. Same as for us, it wasn't necessarily about having this business that runs itself and makes loads of money. It's actually about the journey of creating that and that purpose, that sense of purpose that gives us as business owners.
So moving forward then, John, let's conduct a thought experiment. What is John Lamerton in 20 years' time? What is he doing? What does he look like? What's his business like?
What does he look like? Well, he's a good-looking chap.
Still.
A little bit silver around the ears, you know. We were talking about this before we came on air, because I think I'd love to know what the future holds 20 years from now. But if I project back 20 years, let's go back to 1998, when, as I said, I was watching VHS videos on my massive 28-inch TV. What did the future hold? You know, I mean, literally, I said 1998, I didn't own a computer. I didn't have access to the internet. I probably barely knew what the internet was in 1998. I've run 60 businesses since then, none of which I had the idea for back in 98. So projecting forward where we're going to be in 20 years' time, I'm automatically going to go with what I know now and say, well, AI is going to be prominent. Driverless cars are going to be everywhere. What else is going to be out there? I don't know. What is business going to look like? Where would I like my life to be? Well, I would like to be doing a little bit of what I'm doing now, but even lazier. So I'm 40 now. I'm going to be 60, obviously, in 20 years' time. From the research I've done, that's the new middle-aged, because it's highly likely as humans we are going to be able to live to 120, as opposed to the average age is about 86, 87 now. That will be pushed up to 120, I think. We're talking about 3D printing of artificial limbs and body parts and everything like that. The technology will save us, as long as obviously you haven't got a maniac in charge of the nuclear launch codes in either North Korea or the US. We'll be fine. But other than that, we don't know what's out there. We don't know what is going to happen. So I would just like to think, I will be running businesses still. They will not be the same businesses that I'm running now. Guarantee that, because every business I've had has had a lifespan. It's had ups, it's had downs. If I think about every single business I've owned, there's been a point that I should have exited that business. And sometimes I have, and sometimes I haven't exited, and that business has then plateaued or it's gone down off a cliff and it's just died. Every single one has evolved. The very first business I had was a student website that told people where to get free samples of stuff. That was a hugely successful business, hugely successful website that I thought I'd be running forever. I sold that business 11 years ago now. I was known as John from that business, and then I created something else, and I was known as the guy who did that. And then I've been known for about 7 different businesses. In terms of really that's what he does. I've been pigeonholed as the guy that does that, and I've always evolved, and I will continue to evolve. So over the next 20 years, what am I going to be doing? I have no idea. All I can say is 20 years from now, if it's weather like we've been having recently, I will not be in the UK. If you want to come talk to me, we will be on a Caribbean island somewhere, or we'll be in Australia. We'll be somewhere warm and sunny.
Well, that would be easy for us to come out and record there. We'll be happy to do that, won't we?
More than willing, John. Or we'll teleport ourselves there.
In
20 years'
absolutely.
time. Who knows?
Well, that's not out the realms of possibility, is it?
Thank you, Star Trek.
We were talking the other day about the things in Star Trek that are already true, but don't get Angelos started. We'll be here all day.
Just Star Trek.
John, this podcast is all about success, and as such, we ask everyone that we interview, what does success mean to you?
I think success is completely 100% personal to the individual definition, because what one person could define as a failure, someone else would define as a success. Let's use football as an analogy. So my beloved Plymouth Argyle, 6 years ago, I think 6 or 7 years ago, this week we officially entered administration, which was the start of our massive decline. Very, very nearly went out of existence. Crashed down, 2 successive relegations. Staff weren't being paid. It was a nightmare time. And 6 years later, we're now on the up. So we've been promoted from League Two, which we very nearly fell out of. On the final day of the final season, we stayed up by goal difference, I believe, one year. Very nearly fell out again the following year. So close to going out of existence. We've been promoted. We are currently 6th in the league, I believe, in League One, in a playoff position. We've got a brand new grandstand being built, which is going to be on the way. Work is starting now. It's going to be finished by the start of the 2019-2020 season. We're playing the best football I've seen in many, many years. Crowds are up. There's a real good feel-good factor around that club. We haven't won anything, but right now that's a success. And I always compare this. I remember watching Sky Sports a few years ago. I think this was during the time we were on our way down. And I was watching a Man United match. It was Man United versus Blackburn. So it shows you it was a while ago, because obviously Blackburn are now in our league, whereas they were in the Premier League several years ago. And Blackburn was struggling in the league, but they held Man United to a draw at Old Trafford. And I remember looking at the TV, watching these people, Man United fans, in the stands, crying. And they were crying because they'd dropped 2 points at home. They were still top of the league. I think they still won the league that season. They probably won some other silverware as well. But they dropped 2 points at home, and their fans were in tears. Now, if you want to know about how to cope with failure, become a Plymouth Argyle fan.
Completely numb to it, yeah.
But can you see how that definition of, if we drop 2 points at home, okay, that's part by the by. If a Man United fan drops 2 points at home, oh my God, that's ruined their life.
It's completely true, and you see it with social media, where you hear about people that push posts out, and if they don't get 100,000 likes in the first minute, they'll delete the post. And you think, well, if you get 100,000 likes on something, that's a lot, but it just depends what your perspective is. So with that in mind, for you personally, what do you think success is for you? How do you define it?
So, well, I'll tell you, my very first definition of success in business was the very first cheque that I received for my efforts. So it was affiliate commissions. I think I'd sold some competition websites, sign-ups or something like that. So that very first time I got that cheque was, to me, right, I've succeeded. That cheque was for £13.51, and it took me 9 months to earn that cheque. So in many cases, that's a failure. I don't know what minimum wage was then, but I was earning nowhere near minimum wage. But to me, that was the moment I succeeded, because that was the moment I proved the model. And it's going, right, this works. All I need to do now is scale up. I've earned £13.51 in 9 months. Can I earn £13.51 in a month? Can I earn £13.51 in a week, in a day, in an hour, in a minute? And it was just a case of scaling up until I hit those targets. But to me, that was success, because just instantly I knew that I had it within me to be in complete control of my own destiny.
Yeah.
Again, it comes back to my... I've got this job description, which I mentioned in the book. And it comes from leaving the civil service. And it is the complete opposite of the civil service. And my ultimate job description, which I live to this day, is to do what I want, when I want, where I want, how I want, if I want. And everything now goes through that filter. If I don't want to do it, it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
I do it my way. To be my own boss, that is the ultimate thing. It's nothing to do with money. It's just, actually, can I do it my way? Yeah. Can I do it where I want? Can I do it how I want? Okay. Well, I don't want to do it today. Can I do it tomorrow? Yeah, of course you can. You're the boss. Good news, you're the boss. Bad news, you're the boss.
Yeah, exactly. Buck stops with you. So you gave some really good advice earlier about mindset and things like that for people that you've mentored and for our listeners. But if there was one thing that you would say to people to help them achieve success, whatever that means to them, what do you think that would be?
I think it would be to take the right action. So, so many people are obsessed with getting stuff done, and they're like 100 miles an hour But if you go 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction, you are going to end up way off course. I think you need to have that guiding light of where am I heading. So I've got that job description. That, to me, tells me everything I need to know. But every decision I ever need to make is, well, if I make this decision, is that true to my job description or not? And if you've got that guiding light, every opportunity you've got, every potential new business venture, joint venture, every promotion you could do, you just run it through the filter of, will that get me to where I want to go? If I know, right, I want to go in that direction, then I don't run 100 miles an hour in any direction. I set my course first, and then I work out what I need to do. For me, the key thing to that is, I think I touched on it earlier, there's no problem that can't be solved with a really good sales letter. So sell more is the easiest thing for any business owner to do, is to just go out and sell more. What actually moves the needle, what propels your business forward is more customers, more money. So go out and sell more. That's, for most people, that is where they need to be focusing their efforts. Most people focus their efforts on doing a better job, writing a better book. I remember a conversation, so I've spoken to him personally, I haven't, but a conversation I heard with Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and he talked about being a best-selling author as opposed to a best writing author. He said, I've not written the best book in the world, but look at the front cover there, and that tells you New York Times best-selling author. He said, that's because I didn't focus all of my effort on writing the book. I did a good job of the book. It's a good story, written it well, but I haven't spent another year and a half polishing that up, tweaking every little word, making sure the prose flows absolutely perfectly. What I have done is I've spent 18 months selling the hell out of that book.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice.
Really.
I found today very inspirational.
Definitely.
Some really great nuggets in there, John.
We've got to get on with our book as well.
Yeah,
so
I can't wait. Can't wait to get that done. So thank you for your time today, John.
No, thank you very much, guys. Really enjoyed it.
What's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
So obviously we've got the podcast, which is called the Big Idea Podcast. The book, Big Ideas for Small Businesses, is on Amazon. It's, I think, $12.99 for the paperback, $5.99 for the Kindle. Close to 100 5-star reviews now. I'm looking at you guys. I'm hoping you've left me a 5-star review.
Yeah.
Angelos is about to
run out of credit earlier.
But yeah, it's a fantastic book. If you've got a small business and you want to know where you're going with it, you want a little bit of direction, some strategy, some tactics, it's a great book. If you want to, I've got a free chapter that listeners can actually download, and that is at bigidea.co.uk/John.
Brilliant. And if people want to get in touch about the sort of mentoring that you do as well, can they get in touch via the website?
Yep, absolutely. So again, bigidea.co.uk, take you through to there. Or you can find me on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, just search for John Lamerton.
Cool. So yeah, thank you again, John. We want to know your thoughts and experiences on John's incredible journey and the tips he's had to share. Drop us an email on hello@yoursuccesspodcast.com or get in touch via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram.
So thanks for listening to Your Success Podcast. Please click subscribe, leave us a review, and we look forward to your comments on the Facebook page and the YouTube channel. I've been Angelos.
And I've been Mo.
And see you again on the next exciting episode of Your Success Podcast.
You have been listening to Your Success Podcast. Click subscribe for more incredible content. More details can be found at www.yoursuccesspodcast.com.